3 sharp raps. Then silence. Detective Rebecca Martinez stood on the front porch of the small house on Willowbrook Avenue, her breath visible in the crisp October morning air. The street was quiet except for the distant sound of a school bus making its rounds. Behind her, Officer Thompson clutched a manila folder. His young face etched with confusion about the case that had brought them here. What had started as routine paperwork about a missing person had taken an impossible turn. The surveillance footage from Riverside Park showed something that defied explanation. An 8-year-old girl approaching a man who had been legally declared dead for 30 years. But it wasn't the mystery that troubled Rebecca most. It was the pure, innocent kindness she'd witnessed on that grainy video, and how it had unraveled a web of secrets that stretched back decades. The door opened to reveal Jessica Parker, a woman in her early 30s with tired hazel eyes and auburn hair pulled into a loose ponytail. She wore a faded Michigan State sweatshirt and flannel pajama pants, clearly having been woken by their arrival. The scent of brewing coffee drifted from the kitchen behind her. "Officers." Jessica's voice carried the immediate panic of any parent confronted by police at their door. "Is Lily okay? Has something happened?" "Your daughter is perfectly safe, Mrs. Parker," Rebecca said gently. "But we need to ask her about something that happened at the park on Tuesday. May we come in?" From somewhere inside the house came the sound of morning cartoons and a child's delighted laughter. Jessica stepped aside, leading them into a cozy living room decorated with family photos and children's artwork. The walls told the story of a single mother doing her best. Crayon drawings held up with colorful magnets, a small bookshelf overflowing with picture books, and a corner filled with toys that had clearly been well loved. "Lily," Jessica called softly, "can you come here for a minute, sweetheart?" A small blonde girl appeared in the doorway, still in unicorn print pajamas, clutching a stuffed elephant that had seen better days. Her blue eyes sparkled with curiosity as she took in the 2 uniformed visitors. At 8 years old, Lily Parker radiated the kind of innocent trust that made Rebecca's heart ache, knowing what they'd come to discuss. "Are you real police?" Lily asked, bouncing on her toes. "Do you have handcuffs?" "My friend Tommy says all police have handcuffs and they arrest bad people." "We are real police," Rebecca said, kneeling down to Lily's eye level. "But we're not here to arrest anyone. We just want to hear about your friend at the park." Lily's face lit up with pure joy. "Oh, the crying man. He was so sad, sitting all alone on the bench. Mommy always says when someone is crying, we should try to help them feel better." Jessica's expression shifted from worry to pride as she smoothed her daughter's hair. "That's right, baby. Tell the officers what you did." "Well," Lily said, settling cross-legged on the carpet with the unconscious confidence of childhood, "I was playing with my special balloon, the red one with the smiley face that Daddy drew before he went to heaven, and I saw this old man just sitting there crying really, really hard." Rebecca exchanged a glance with Thompson. The surveillance footage had captured this moment, but hearing it through the innocent perspective of a child added layers they hadn't anticipated. "His clothes were all wrinkled and dirty," Lily continued, her small hands gesturing expressively, "and he had this really sad face with lots of wrinkles. He looked like he needed a hug, but Mommy says I shouldn't hug strangers, so I gave him my balloon instead." "What did you say to him, honey?" Jessica asked, though Rebecca could see she already knew this story. Probably heard it several times since Tuesday. "I told him that my balloon always makes me happy when I'm sad, especially because of his daddy's drawing on it. I said maybe it would make him happy too." Lily's voice carried that matter-of-fact simplicity that only children possessed. "He looked at me really surprised, like nobody had ever been nice to him before. Then he started crying even harder, but different crying. Happy, sad crying, like when Mommy watches those movies with the puppies." Rebecca felt a tightness in her chest. The man in the footage, Harold Whitman, according to their records, had indeed broken down upon receiving the balloon. But what the cameras couldn't capture was a profound impact of a child's pure kindness on someone who had been invisible to the world for 3 decades. "Did he say anything to you?" Thompson asked gently. Lily nodded enthusiastically. "He said, 'Thank you, little angel,' and that nobody had been kind to him in a very, very long time. He said I reminded him of someone special. Oh, and he gave me this. She jumped up and ran to a small table by the window, returning with a faded photograph. Rebecca's breath caught as she saw the image. A young man in military uniform standing next to a woman holding a baby. He said this was his family from a long, long time ago, and that he wanted to have it because I was so nice. He said maybe someday I'd understand why it was important. Jessica looked at the photo with new concern. Lily, you never told me about the picture. Sweetie, we've talked about taking things from strangers. But he wasn't a stranger anymore, Mommy. After I gave him my balloon, we were friends. And friends share things. Rebecca carefully took the photograph, noting the date stamped on the back, June 1993. Her pulse quickened as she recognized the face of the young soldier. It was unmistakably Harold Whitman, 30 years younger and filled with hope rather than the hollow desperation they'd seen in the park footage. Lily, Rebecca said carefully, after you gave him balloon and he gave you this picture, what happened next? He stood up and said he had something very important to do. He said my kindness reminded him that there are still good people in the world, and that maybe it wasn't too late for him to be good too. Lily's voice grew more animated as she remembered. Then he walked toward those big buildings downtown, but he was walking different, not sad and slow like before. He was walking like he had somewhere important to be. Rebecca's mind raced. The big buildings downtown would include the police station, city hall, and the courthouse. If Harold Whitman had indeed survived whatever had caused his disappearance 30 years ago, and if Lily's simple act of kindness had somehow motivated him to come forward. Mrs. Parker, Rebecca said, standing up, I need to make a phone call. But first, I want you both to know that what Lily did on Tuesday may have solved a case that's been cold for 3 decades. Jessica pulled her daughter closer. I don't understand. What case? Who is this man? Before Rebecca could answer, Thompson's radio crackled to life. Unit 47, we have an update on the Whitman situation. He's here at the station. Says he's ready to tell his story. Says a little girl with a balloon reminded him what kindness looks like. Lily looked up at her mother with wide, innocent eyes. Mommy, did my balloon really help solve a police case? Like on TV? As Rebecca watched the confusion and wonder play across the faces of this mother and daughter, she realized they were about to become part of something much larger than a simple missing person case. Harold Whitman's story, whatever it was, had remained buried for 30 years. But sometimes it took the pure, uncomplicated kindness of a child to give someone the courage to finally come home. The investigation that followed would reveal a tale of guilt, survival, and redemption that stretched back to a tragic accident in 1994. Harold had been driving the night his young family. The woman and baby in the photograph had died in a collision with a drunk driver. Racked with survivor's guilt and unable to face a world without them, he had walked away from his identity and spent 3 decades living on the margins of society. But on that Tuesday afternoon in Riverside Park, watching an 8-year-old girl offer her most treasured possession to a crying stranger, Harold Whitman remembered what it felt like to believe in goodness again. 3 hours later, Rebecca sat across from Harold in the station's interview room. He was cleaned up now, shower, fresh clothes, a hot meal, but his weathered hand still clutched Lily's red balloon with its smiling face drawn in permanent marker. She didn't know who I was, he said quietly. Didn't care that I was dirty or strange, or probably scared her mother just by existing in that park. She just saw someone who needed kindness. Harold's voice cracked as he continued. I've spent 30 years believing I didn't deserve to be part of the world anymore. But that little girl, she reminded me that sometimes the world needs us to be part of it, even when we don't feel worthy. Rebecca learned that Harold had been living under various false identities, doing odd jobs, staying invisible, the guilt of surviving when his family hadn't consumed him completely. But Lily's simple gesture had cracked something open inside him, a realization that his family wouldn't have wanted him to disappear, that his survival could honor their memory rather than shame it. I don't believe in coincidences anymore, Sarah said. That evening, after Rebecca had been settled in her room and Kennedy was asleep, Sarah sat on her front porch with Buster beside her. The September air was crisp, carrying the first hint of autumn. In a few weeks, the leaves would start changing and Kennedy would experience her first fall as a normal kid, going to school, making friends, living in a house instead of hiding in the woods. Sarah thought about the little boy she'd lost at night. She found Kennedy, the patient whose death had left her so emotionally raw, so open to the desperate plea in a strange dog's eyes. She wondered if that loss had been necessary somehow, if it had prepared her heart to recognize the need she saw in the forest that night. Her phone buzzed with a text from her ex-husband, David. Heard through the grapevine about your new family. Proud of you, Sarah. You were always meant to be a mom. Sarah smiled, typing back, Thanks. We're happy. And they were. It wasn't the life she'd planned, wasn't the neat, orderly existence she'd imagined for herself at 42. It was messier, scarier, more complicated than anything she'd ever taken on, but it was also fuller, richer, more meaningful than she'd ever thought possible. Kennedy appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Sarah, I had a bad dream. Come here, sweetheart. Kennedy climbed into Sarah's lap, and Buster immediately moved closer, pressing his warm bulk against their legs. The three of them sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. Sarah? Kennedy's voice was small against her chest. Yes. Do you think Mama will remember my birthday next month? Sarah's heart clenched. Rebecca's decline had been faster than anyone had predicted. Some days she didn't recognize Kennedy at all. But Sarah had learned that honesty, gentle but complete, was what Kennedy needed. I don't know, baby, but even if she doesn't remember the date, she'll remember that she loves you. That never changes, even when someone's mind gets sick. Kennedy was quiet for a long moment. Then, will you remember my birthday? Every year for the rest of my life. I promise. And Buster will be there too? Sarah looked down at the dog who had changed everything. He was getting older. The veterinarian estimated he was about 7 years old, middle-aged for a German shepherd. But he was healthy, devoted, and showed no signs of slowing down. Buster will be there too. Kennedy relaxed against her, and Sarah realized this was what she'd been searching for her whole adult life without knowing it. Not the perfect nuclear family she tried to create with David. Not the biological children she grieved when they never came. This, a child who needed her, a woman who trusted her with the most precious thing in her world, and a dog who'd somehow orchestrated it all. The night was cool, but not cold.